Hello, Internet! This is LordMaddog, and we are playing Avorion! Yeah! Today, we are making a tutorial on advanced building. Yes! How do you go from building that to something like this? Yeah! Now, before we start, this is a disclaimer. I am by no means a master builder. There are other builders out there that make my stuff pale in comparison. So, that some of the techniques I mentioned here may not be the optimal best way, but it is what I have found quite usable. So, that said, let's jump right on into it. Alright, so let's start with the first steps. Okay, you just created yourself your first ship, and you get this block 2x2. Now, first thing you're going to want to do is go scale, modify, scale it down, so it turns into a 1x1. Okay, so the building comes in in several stages, all right, to do this. And after you have a 1x1, your next thing you want to do is select an a hall block. Make sure it's a regular empty hall block, all right? And make sure that you scale it to 1x1 in all directions. Yes, this is called the blockout method. It is the easiest way to create an outer shell of your ship that looks really nice and so that you can use it. So how that works is basically you scale everything down to 1x1. You turn on metal snapping, and then you begin to block it out. So let's say I wanted a swooped wing that comes out like so. I'm going to need to bring that even farther out. And this basically, you do this for your entire ship build. And as you see here, I'm starting to have a small noticeable curve. And then basically you do this for the whole thing. You block it out like this. And you want to use 1x1s because if you don't use 1x1s later on, you'll start having misalignment, a lot of it. And even with 1x1s, you'll end up having misalignment in the corners. And it can be very hard to deal with. But 1x1s keeps that to a minimal. Also, later on, if you're a perfectionist or you want to have specific stats on your ship, it's easier to do math with 1x1s. And so basically, you just make your entire shape. Here, I'm going to go ahead and jump to one of the ships. I already have a shape made out. Now, you can do this all by hand, or you can do by making a 3D model outside of the game and using an online converter to turn it into voxels. Okay, so this one I used an online converter to convert into voxels. But something you should note when you do an online converter to turn something into voxels, that it will, like here with the wings, it'll make it blocky and thick, whereas it wouldn't be normally. And as you've seen my Praetor, and that's one we're going to be doing the example on today, the Praetor, me making this ship, and a little bit of time lapse and me explaining the details about it, that this is a lot thicker than the wings ends up being. That's because I know with the all-wing I wanted to look, and actually I had a lot of help in that. Okay? One thing, though, when you're making the shape, is make sure you get it as close as possible. You're likely ad-lib when you're building, but if you have something like this, you see here, this is 3 thick, and the shape it currently is, you're going to end up having a really thick top front, and I wouldn't want that. So, I wanted to go around and delete all of these, the first row, and I did do that before I built, just like this. And what that does is it ended up giving, oops, I forgot to put the Y axis on. Okay, but yeah, you get the general ideal. Basically, you want to try to get the block out, the shape, the best closest to the shape as you can. This is the first step, blocking out. And it is extremely important that you get mostly the shape you want, because if you don't get that shape that you want, later on your build isn't going to look right. So, no, it doesn't look like much when you're blocking it out. And it can take time, but it's worth the effort, because if you have it blocked out right, it'll make things 1,000 times easier. Alright, so once you have your block all set up and you're ready to start, next thing you do is to start covering it with 1s and 2 squares to make it look smooth. As you see here in the time lapse, I have already started building the Praetor by using a combination of 1s and 2 squares. Right now I'm working on the outsides, and it has a nice sharp pointy look to it because that's what I wanted. And then later on I move into doing the top and smoothing off the top and whatnot. Now, and when you do this, it's basically a trial and error type thing. You can run into problems and have to go online and try to get some help. I know I certainly do all the time, because sometimes these blocks don't want to put together. But that's basically because if you watch closely, you will notice that I do something that you probably shouldn't do, but I wanted to do it for the trying to get a certain look out of it. I have blocks that extend more than 1 and 2. I'll stretch them out to make them cover a larger space. Now, it may be better just sometimes instead of stretching them out like you've seen me do here, because you'll see over here in the corner, I got into this little problem right here, and I can't get these blocks to align. And that's because I decided I was going to have one block longer and one block shorter, because I wanted that sharp edge there. And by doing that, I create this little misalignment problem that makes it really hard for me to deal with. And you can do that, and sometimes you can work around it, and other times you can't work around it. So it's basically a complete and total trial and error thing. Now, you can also use this edge, just regular edge blocks while doing this, but you'll have to note that when you use an edge block and try to combine it with corner 1s and 2s, you will also sometimes get misalignment, and you'll have problems that have to be rebuilt. Like you see here, I'm trying to rebuild this, and as I rebuild it, I end up using an edge 1, but later on that comes back to bite me, or an edge, an iron edge armor block. That comes back to bite me in the backside because it doesn't align about 3 blocks up. Yeah, and in fact, this entire thing has to be redone, and just because of here. And also, you'll see me do that here at the front as well. I'll block it, I'll cut it out, and I'll place it all down, and then I'll have to go back and do it again. Like I said, I'm by no means a masterwork, and I will guarantee you will find yourself having to redo this many, many times unless you're just a natural at blocking, because otherwise you just don't get the shape you want, and the blocks will fight you sometimes. Okay. Now, also, it should be noted that I am building in armor pieces, and the reason why I'm building in armor pieces is because you want your ship hull to have a decent amount of life. And if you just regular build in non-armor pieces, anytime you get hit, especially with a railgun or anything, your ship's gonna fall to pieces. They don't. Armor pieces have a lot more life, and not only that, if you build with armor pieces on the outside, you will be easily able to just select all the under hull pieces and delete them, and then you won't end up getting it mixed together with your regular build. See here, once again, I'm having a problem with this corner. Yeah, so I just went ahead and used an edge, but like I said, later on that has to be completely changed. I had to go online to get help because I did this. Okay, and it's just this. This is all it is for a couple hours. Is all you're going to be doing is switching back and forth between block 1s and corner 1s and corner 2s. And then there's called the twisted corner. And if you want to help with the twisted corner, that's for building very beautiful wings, like what's on my Praetor. I'm sad to say though, I am not very good with twisted corners. I still can't quite figure out how to use them. I've almost got it down thanks to some people's help, and it makes a big difference getting people online. There is a online Discord server. So you're going to want to go and find the official Discord server, and then you're going to go in the build chat and just post pictures of your problems if you run into misalignment and different things. It'll dramatically help. But basically, this is all there is to it. You just keep on chucking it out, and eventually you'll get a nice, smooth build. Alright, so if you just keep on pushing at it, you'll eventually end up with something like this. Yes. And after you have something like this, you'll just take and you'll hit select, you'll go view, and you go hull blocks, and you'll select, they're not there now because I've already saved afterwards, and you select it all, and you can just hit delete. Now, some people like to leave them in there and just convert them, but for the method I use, I find it a lot easier just to get them all out of there. Like, oh, I missed one right here. Yes, I find it a lot easier just to get them all out of there. And then after you're done with that, oh, well, first off, let's talk about what you get. You have this completely empty on the inside. Nice empty interiors, which will allow you to move on and actually do the interiors. So let's talk about the interiors. All right, now here, as you see, we're right here in the front of this thing. And I've got myself my integrity field block, and I am going through really quick and just adding integrity field blocks, making sure everything is covered in blue. Now, the main reason for doing this is so your ship doesn't fall apart the first time it gets hit. Using this method, you will usually have a lot of small blocks, and those small blocks will come off the instant they get bumped if you don't have integrity field generators. And integrity field generators add 20 times the life to small blocks, and they also increase decrease hull damage taken by 50%. And all you have to do with integrity field blocks is you just go through your entire ship, and you do is what I'm doing right here, and just add them small little blocks, about a little bit 1 to 1.5. I'm not 0.5 to 1 size blocks. So that's all you have to do, and it's easy enough. And then after you get done with integrity field generators, we'll skip forward here a second. All right, now after you're done with integrity field generators, you want to switch over to framework. Yes. Now, framework is everything. You're going to want to put framework in as you see me doing this, I am covering absolutely every single itch with framework. And why would I do that? Because later on I can convert this framework into anything I want and need it to be. Right now though, I'm blocking it out. Now I had usually started to do with thrusters, but the problem with thrusters is they have those green ball indicators showing which direction they go. Okay, and so that makes it hard to actually see what you're doing sometimes. So it's a lot easier just to do with framework. Framework also makes it easy. It's light and bright on the inside, so because I put down the integrity field generators, they generate light on the inside, and with any other block, you'll cut that light out, and it'll make it dark and hard to see what you're doing. As you see, it's very light and airy in there as I am working with these blocks. Now, one thing to note with as you add your framework, you want to make sure that you get it all perfectly aligned if you're going to be transforming into thrusters. Because if you don't, you will have those giant thrust plumes coming up and out from the inside of your ship. And if you're like me, I can't stand that. So during this time lapse, well, actually, we won't go that far. But during it, you'll see me spend like 30-20 minutes trying to find a single block that I did not like, where the thruster was blowing up through and out of the system. It was totally annoying. Okay, now when you're doing this, right now I'm working on crew quarters, because I like to make the crew quarter right up there at the top. And you see, I forgot to turn off my y-axis, so it put crew quarter down at the bottom as well. But I like to put crew quarters at my cockpit. That's just my own personal preference. Okay, now, why you are doing this, some amount of clipping can be useful. As you can see here, I do get them to clip a little bit, but you always want to work from the outsides, though. So that what I mean by the outside, you want to have your mouse pressed against the outside when you're pushing it down, the outside block. Because if you don't have an outside block, what's going to happen is you're going to end up getting it to stick outside of the block, outside your blocks, and you're going to have framework sticking out of the ship, and that's just nasty. It's not nice looking. And as you see here multiple times, I flip to the outside to see if I'm sticking outside to make sure I'm actually not sticking outside. And I think here you will see me stick outside just briefly, and then I had to delete the block and come back in and get it not to stick outside. Right here. Oh, too fast. I think that was it. But you see, I keep on flipping back outside to make sure I'm not flipping out. There, I did. It had just poked out right there. Okay. Now, there are several things that can be very useful when do this. As I'm saying, you want to push on the outside. If you have something like this wing that is not symmetrical on either side, the front and the back are different. What you want to do is you want to push the block to the very middle, like that, and then bring the other block to meet it. And that's okay if those two blocks overlap in the middle, because it's not going to hurt anything, and in fact you just gain a little bit more volume on the inside. So you have a little bit more thrust or whatever you're trying to put in there. Also, another thing that is very useful is block clipping, completely total block clipping. As you've seen there, I clicked it multiple times because it wouldn't let me place the block normally, but I forced it to let me place that block by scrolling the block down and clicking on it quickly, very fast, or it doesn't actually have to be very fast, just clicking on it in small size, doing it again. And what that does is it allows you to override some of the small annoying things. And then you'll probably want to combine those blocks together after you're done, that way you don't have too high of a block count. Because you can get really high block count doing that. But clipping is very useful, and you can do it by making your blocks, the block you're trying to place, a little bit smaller. You can scale it all the way down to one size if you have to get it to clip. And it can be very annoying, but you definitely also want to combine it afterwards. Now, after you have everything on the inside all blocked out, I guess is what you would call it, done like this, you can go and, well, I'll just show you. Okay, here we are. You see that I've just made it visible. Only thing visible is the flame work. And as you see, I have selected my thrusters, and I just quickly click through, and I converted all by hitting Alt and right click. I quickly converted all the framework in the front and then the wings into regular thrusters. And then I noticed that I didn't have enough yaw, so I converted the front thrusters into directional thrusters to the point left and right, so I get some more yaw. And now I'm all the way up to 2.9 rads, rotations. Okay, so on both 0.29 at this size of a ship. Now, as I was saying before, here you'll see me for a long time mess with this because it is pointing out. The little thrusters are popping out of the ship, and that's because of, I'm not entirely sure why. I tried to figure out exactly why it was doing that, but to try to fix it, I quickly switched back and forth between what I'm seeing. Usually I'm just looking at the directional thrusters and the regular thrusters, and I am trying to find that one specific block that is the culprit for this. And eventually I do find it, and I cannot fix it, so I just convert that stupid block into an energy container, because I do not like that. And I eventually am able to stop that. And that's pretty much all there is for interiors, except for a couple things to note. That having smaller thruster blocks seems to actually give you more mobility, more block pounds for your block. So if you, I don't know when it becomes a thing, but large thruster blocks, if you combine them together, seem to generate less thrust. At least that's what a couple people online have told me now. And through testing, I haven't actually been able to tell that much of a difference because I don't deal with too big of ships when I'm building. But I'm guessing that the size I end up making them in-game, it may probably make a difference. So you should note that. You may not, some of them even go as far as to actually color the thruster blocks so they can't be combined together. See here, I was building in my game, so what's going on here. Okay. And another thing to note is that some blocks, when used, have to be a minimum size. And what I mean by that is that you have to be, well, obviously, what I mean by that was a dumb thing to say. They have to be of a minimum width, length, and height to actually be usable. So cargo boxes, if you don't have them be at least, I think it's almost like a 2 or 3 by 3. I can't remember exact details. That they will not actually add cargo to your ship. They'll just be completely, totally worthless blocks. Same thing with cloning factories, academies, and I think there was one other, but I can't remember its name right now. But you'll have to test and make sure. So when you make these blocks out, you want to make sure that there are at least a certain height, width, and length if you're going to plan on converting those specific blocks into something that is minimal. So as you see here, I combined that one together and I converted that into my cargo bay, and it is big enough so it works. And okay, now let's talk about actually coloring the block. Sometimes when you use someone's ship from online, you can hit framework and you'll see on the inside that it has different colored blocks. So let's jump forward to that. Okay, here we are. I've already painted blue and now I'm putting yellow blocks on my ship. Now, the reasons why I do this is because for yellow blocks, those are blocks that can be used for cargo bays and different things that actually require a minimum amount. I try to make those blocks big enough. And the other blocks, I color them as red and blue. Those blocks are specifically, I think they should be the ones that you use basically for your hyperspace core and your energy generations or shield generations. And then you'll see that people will sometimes specifically color them to be used as that such. I've noticed different colors, variations of different colors, but it's just one thing to note that if you get a ship or you're making your ship and you want to have available for other people to use, that it may be a wise idea to go in there and paint the different colors so people easily know what they are. I usually leave a lot of just regular framework for people to be able to convert their ship into anything they want. Other people, they'll convert all that framework into usable something or another. I'm not a big fan of that because I like customization and other people, it's your own preference. And so yeah, that's pretty much the block out. Also, one other thing, just quick thing before we move on to the next step, is that engines, unlike thrusters, will always put out plumes. At least they have done for me. So you want to make sure you put your engine blocks somewhere that they're not going to be throwing out thruster plumes throughout your ship, because if people are like me, I don't like that all that much. And sometimes it may be that you just don't have enough space inside your ship to get the right amount of thrust that you want. So you will have to have that happen. With I did one of my ships. I think it's the Lasher. It had to have some thrusters up in the top top wing, and they just put a little bit of thrust plumes out, and I'm not entirely happy with that, but it had to be that way for that time being. Oh, also here I am working with, for a long time I'm working with what do they call that? Hanger blocks. Hanger blocks have to have a specific way of being pointed out of the ship to be functional. So you should keep that in mind when you're putting the internals in. They have to be able to turn the direction to go in and out. But you can also have massive internal blocks on the inside and hangers. So, and just have very small ones on the outside. So that's a good thing to note too as well. Now let's move on to the next part, decoration. Alright, for this last part of the tutorial, we're going to go back into real time because it's a lot easier if I explain with this hands-on. Decorations! Yes, it's the act of putting little frillies on your ship, like these thrusters and this engine back here, or maybe entirely your engine altogether, which is what we're going to do as an example. So, first off, we're going to need is an engine to actually put on here. Now, there's a couple ways that we can get an engine to put on here. One, we could go ahead and make our own design. We could, build a giant block and then begin to put out one, make one of our own. And I've made one of my own before and whatnot. But I've found one I really like engine-wise, and I'm trying to keep with that theme. So I'm going to go ahead here and go build. I'm going to open my saved workshop designs. We're going to find this one here. It'll take me a few seconds. Ah, found it. That's the problem with having so many decoration files. You end up trying to spend a few minutes trying to find. This is Alan Fire's template background. All right, now this one is full of templates for engines. As you can see here, we have tons of different engines that really fine work, a lot of detail in these, and it's just really nice. All right, we're going to select this engine right here. And how we do that, we take and rectangle select. We select it all, control, and hit Control C to control copy. That's all we need from this thing. And the way he's designed it is so you can easily select it without getting anything else in your selecting. And I think there's a lot of different designs online. As you've seen here in my list, I've got a decent amount of different decoration files. You can go online and just type deco in the workshop, and you'll find tons of decorations. If you want, it's easy enough to make decorations for yourself. There is an easy one. I can show you just an example of how easy it is to make decorations. Okay, here's some decorations of antennas. Now, I don't use either one of these antennas on my build, but you can see it's really easy to make these, right? Here he's got an edge block, and he's got a hull block, and he's just got another blank hull, another edge block, and then here. But as you see, this looks really nice. And adding that to your ship can add a lot of detail. It depends on your type of ship. You different decorations for different ships, and then painting them can really make a difference as well. So you got to go through the list and just look what you got, and you can make your own real easy. But then it can take hours to make some of the more detailed ones. So let's switch back over to my other ship. All right, here we are. I want to go back into build mode, and now that I've got my thing selected, I can hit Control V, and we see here that we're going to try to stick this on here, but we've got a couple problems. First off, how do we get it to where we want it to go? Also, one of the things you can do is hold Alt to select, hold your Alt button down, and then move your mouse across, and it'll select your point of where you're going to paste it from. But as you can see, either way, it's still going to be kind of a pain to stick this thing on here. So what I'm going to do is select a small block, and I'm going to extrude it out like so. And I'm going to attach it right there onto it so I can easily edit it. All right, there we are. Actually, I put that in the wrong place. Let me do that again. All right, there we go. Now we have it in a good place for us to deal with it. We need to put a location for us to be able to attach that to that. So with that in mind, I'm going to go ahead and take an engine block, bring it on out here, and make sure it lines up with this block here. So actually, I'm going to quickly do this here. I'll have a small time lapse as I do this. All right, there we go. Now we have a block place that we can actually use as our centerpiece to actually be able to attach it properly. Let's delete these corner pieces. We can always put them back later because they're going to be in the way when I try to place it. That's why I turned it around this way. Also, you see down here that this is some remnants of that left over. One of the only ways I've ever found to get rid of that, other than reloading the game, and even the reloading game sometimes won't work, is to take a block and merge it. See here? Now we hit merge. Boom, gone. So if you ever have a problem with blocks not coloring right or sticking around after they've been deleted, just go ahead and plop down 2 blocks, merge them, then delete them. And you can see it's gone. It makes things so much easier after you learn that, because that happens when you're dealing with a high block count or your computer's a little bit slow. I'm dealing with both. I'm dealing with a high block count here. Okay, now that we've got that created, let's go ahead and Control V again. We're going to select the back piece, and we're going to go ahead and swing it all the way around. And to for a good measure, we're going to put it on middle block snapping, middle snap. And we're going to bring this right down like so. But that looks nice, but it's not quite right. I think I'm also going to make it a little bit longer. So we're going to bring it out to 8. 8. There we go. Boom. And there we are. I have myself an engine. And that's basically how you add decorations. Or, as in this case, the engine. Now this engine's completely decoration. It does have an engine because I put it there, but it's mostly just complete deco. So it has no real function other than to look nice. And that's a wonderful thing. Same with these over here. Now, so talk about a functional block. These thrusters here. If we go ahead and... Well, they're still just decoration, look nice. But you see those thrusters there? See how they spewed out flames? That's because I have designed them so... Actually, just let me show you the actual file here. Actually, while I'm here, let's talk about templates. If you go out and you look at your file, you will have a box called templates. This is templates here. And in templates, you click on it, and usually it'll be empty except for like 3 default ones. You can save a template, any group of blocks that you have selected, just like I selected that block, so you can save them. Save template from from clipboard. You can just hit that, and it'll appear in there. As you can see, I have the engine in there already, but for showing sake, I've gone ahead and did it from where I got it and how to get it, and then how to put it in there. So we're going to take and apply this, copy to clipboard, and let's look at this thing here. Let's first delete this old one, this off here, because I think not enough builds use working thrusters, and I want to explain how that works because I think it really adds a lot of detail to this game. All right, now, sorry about that. Snored a lot last night. As you see here, they have a thruster on the. Let's move that out of the way. We have a thruster behind the vents, and how that works is there's a small amount of space between the thruster and the vents, and you have to have a decent amount of space between them, otherwise it won't throw out those little thrust like that from it. And once it gets too small, it won't throw out thrust either. So the farther you can get it away from the vents and still look nice, the better. And you can do this with any type of design, any type of thruster vent, but in space, it's really nice to have multiple looking thrusters off your ship to actually throw plumes of particles out. And it's pretty easy to make. If you're going to make, let's talk actually about making one. If you're going to make vents anyway, it's simple as taking a edge block and making it a little bit bigger maybe than that. And then I'm having other problems with the clipping here. Edge block. There we are. And right there. As you can see, oh, I got it the wrong way. My bad. There we go. There we go. Oh, stupid clipping. And there. All right, now we have half of a vent, and you see that, and then you just go shift to select it, make sure you're spinning around, or nope, not X. It's a Y actually I needed to do. There we are, and X again. There we are. You have a nice little vent grill. And that's really easy to make vent grills, and you can make these vent grills any type of way, shape, or form, and then you just paste them on your ship. There, let's go. Let's actually go ahead and paste it on my ship somewhere. All right, let's find some location. Actually, this isn't going to work very well to place it on my ship because most might have, there's no real flat spot on my ship. But let's go ahead and just delete a non-flattening piece here. I think, yeah, probably there. And no, that's not going to work. I'd have to put another block. But just to show, we're going to go ahead and turn off block snapping. No snap. Just bring it down. Make sure we're selecting the right. We got to bring it on out so we can select the bottom of the block underneath of it. Hold Alt to select. So I'm holding the bottom, the one on the bottom, and we're bringing it into place. And gonna make it just big enough to. Well, that's ugly, but yeah, you get the idea. And place it. And the game decides to save. No need for it to save. There we go. And there you are. You have your thruster placed. And that's basically how you do all decorations. anything you want to, you can add tons and tons of detail. As you've seen the end, if you see the end product of my Praetor, you'll see that I've placed it thrusters everywhere. I've even added little antennas in the back here, and it just adds a nice little bit of detail. Now let's also talk about things that you have to dig back the interior. Like this here, I had to actually take back the interior to put it in. Now, when you take back the interior, it can take a decent amount of time to fix up the interior, especially after you're all done, but sometimes it's worth it. See here, I had to remold the interior around it. I didn't do it completely perfect, but I had to once again reinstall all the framework back behind it because I wanted to add this detail here. And that's perfectly fine. It just takes you a little bit extra time, and sometimes it's worth it. As you can see here, I think this little bit adds a decent amount of detail, especially because the curves of the ship actually entail that there's something in there, and that adds that. It adds just what you need. It's all aesthetic choice, and sometimes it can be a little hard to have the eye you need to see if you're not an artist. I'm an artist myself, but I'm not that good of an artist, I'll be honest. So it takes me a little bit of trial and error, and you'll see that in the time lapse of my Praetor. To get things right, I had to shrink and make this thing bigger and smaller like 5-6 times until I finally found where I thought it looked decent. Okay, now after you're done with all your decoration, then comes time for painting. And painting can be a bit hard because, once again, it's all about aesthetic choice, and you're going to run into problems like this. Right here, you see this? This is all one solid block, and that makes things kind of hard to make it look nice painting. Now, I've tried to remove these one solid blocks and try to make it multiple blocks. The only problem with that is the way I've designed it, it makes it really hard to do that. And actually make it look nice. So I basically have these giant splatches up here in the front, and I've got to figure out how to paint them to make them look nice. But there are things that's really cool, especially with using corner blocks, is you get shapes like this. And ta-da! See how that looks nice? And if I take another blue, or blue is something, and they bring it along the edge there, and we'll bring it a little bit farther out. One there. Yeah, you can get some nice looking stripes and different things with corner edge block, corner ones and corner twos. So you can get the really good looking detail in that, and also you probably want to have it mirrored, that way it looks nicer. Also, well, there's not much more to painting than that, other than just looking at it and trying to figure out what colors you want. I would not suggest to paint it all one color, or just basically one or two colors. You want to try to make your color palette match, but having just one color or maybe two colors, it doesn't look good. It doesn't matter how good your ship is. If you just have it one or two colors, it's not going to look near as nice as it could look if you had it multiple colors. Also, another really cool thing you can do, which I don't do a lot with all of my designs, but I've seen a lot of designs out there, is adding some cool glow blocks. I do have a couple glow blocks on mine around my weapons, but you've got hologram blocks, but iron glow blocks. Here, let's go ahead and take and add this iron glow block here, just so you can see what they look like right here. And as you see, I totally painted blue because I had to paint blue, but like you paint it red, boom, you got a glow block that glows red. Why is that not glowing? I guess my computer's taking a little bit to catch up. It's kind of glowing. But yeah, basically you get the ideal. I've seen some ships, really cool ships, that they've completely taken like entire lines and add glow to it, and that can add a lot of nice detail. And that's pretty much it. That's how you make a really nice ship. See the end result here of my Praetor, or one of my other ships. Here, Praetor, apply. Here we are. And I have a coaxial weapon from the bottom here. There we are. Coaxial weapon added, and you can see that looks really nice. If you want to have a tutorial on how to do turret bases and turrets, I have one up. There's also a couple other ones that are a lot more recent than mine. Mine's a little bit old, but I still think it's kind of prevalent. And yeah, that's pretty much the decorations. As you can see, you can get a decent amount looking nice ship, as I've already said a couple times. And yeah, I hope you do it. You're able to put out some really nice looking stuff with this information. LordMaddog, signing off.